Hi everyone, so this video today is all about phonics to fluency, and it's packed full of useful tips, strategies, things you can do at home to help your child make the leap from sounding out, knowing some of their phonics sounds, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them, but actually struggling then to read a book. They're really reluctant to read a book. The reason they are reluctant to read the book is because reading the book is hard for them. So today I'm going to tell you lots of things that could help. I'm also going to tell you a little bit about how my sessions work, how I structure them to help them make that leap from phonics to fluency.
And if you follow some of the strategies that I'm about to talk about, you can see the huge impact this can have on your child's fluency. Here you can see Edward, who read a whole book without even stopping to think, and previously was a completely reluctant reader. The same with Lewis, woke up at 6 a.m. to read his book because he'd had a newfound confidence for reading. And the same for Jessica. You could really see it on her face. It says here that she is enjoying the story and she's reread the book so many times, then picked up the second.
Okay, so what is phonics? If you don't already know by now, which I'm sure you do, phonics in really simple terms is looking at letters, we call these graphemes, which represent one single sound, and there can be different groups of letters that represent different sounds. So if we look at the basic set one letters, we're looking at maybe sat pin, so s, a, t, p, I, n. Okay, and if we are looking at digraphs, we're looking at things like ch and sh, so two letters that make up one sound. There are lots of other videos out there that can tell you all about phonics, and I'm going to do some more videos that tell you about phonics, but it's not what this video is about. It's about making the leap from phonics to fluency. So now I've told you what phonics is, I really want to tell you a little bit about what the word fluency actually means. So fluency is where your child is no longer relying on the sounding out of individual sounds in each word to read it. So instead of saying k, a, t, they're just looking at the word cat and they recognise those sounds and they can blend them already in their head. It becomes automatic, and we actually call this automaticity, which is quite a long word. So instead of the children painfully saying the k, a, t, cat, s, a, t, sat, o, n, on, you get the idea. The mat, they're going to read the words the cat sat on the mat. That is what fluency is. As the children get older, you're then looking at things like multi-syllable words, and you're also looking at the use of punctuation and maybe tone of voice, speech marks, looking at who's speaking. All of those things will come into fluency. But to start off with in fluency, it's simply looking at, can your child read a book without sounding out every single word that they are reading? And that can be really tricky for some children. So many parents say to me, my child is so reluctant to read, how can I practice their fluency? The reason they are reluctant to read is because they find it hard. It is challenging. It's challenging for their brain. They've had a long day at school or whatever the case may be, and therefore they put up a barrier there and they don't want to do it. So I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on things that you can do at home to help your child bridge that gap between phonics and fluency. First of all, I want to talk to you about the sounds. Your child may know the sounds, so they might know their phase 3 sounds by now, for example. So when they're looking at phase 3 sounds, they're looking at sounds like ch, sh, z, w, x. So they're looking at all different sounds. They might know these, but it might take them a second or so to register that it's a ch, or a second or so to register that it's a th, and so on. And actually they need to know these sounds inside out. So an example that I'll use for you at the moment is my daughter is on phase 3 sounds at school. She's in reception. She knows the sounds. She's getting slightly confused between ear and air at the moment, but actually if you remind her, or she has a minute or so to think about it, she can recognise which is which. But they need to know them automatically. So as soon as you show them that flashcard, they need to know the sound. And actually you can't do enough repetition, just repetition, repetition, repetition. And there are lots of ways that you can practice learning these sounds. First way that you can do it really simply get a pack of flashcards and be as creative with those flashcards as you can be. So yes, you might do a quick, okay, how many of these sounds can we read in 30 seconds, put on a timer, go, go, go. If your child though is a little bit reluctant and maybe they're lacking in confidence, they might find that too pressurized. In which case, I would take the option of reading the sound to them first and getting them to repeat it back and seeing how quickly you can do it, rather than them getting them to do it, and then build up getting them to do that independently. So that's the first simple idea. You might be thinking, okay, well, I've already got a pack of flashcards at home. What's this lady telling me? This is really obvious. But there is so much more that you can do with that one pack of flashcards. Another really quick and easy game you can do is literally take 5 cards, 5 sounds that you're focusing on, and hide them around the house. Once you've hidden them around the house, say to your child, right, I'm going to put 2 minutes on the timer. You've got to find all 5 sounds. Once they've found the 5 sounds, they need to say them back to you before they earn a point to each one. And then maybe you can swap over and they can do the same for you as well. If you are doing that, you're doing a swap, a really good idea then is to make mistakes when you're reading them and they earn a point for those mistakes. So for example, if you're looking at the sound ch and you found it and you're giving it back to them, you're going to give it to them and say shh. If they recognise that you've made a mistake and they say, no, it's not shh, it's ch, they're going to earn an extra point. Okay, so you would explain that to them before the start of the game. One that you can do is splat the sound. So make sure that your child knows all of the sounds, lay them out on the table in front of them and put a minute on the timer. Okay, we're going to look at how many sounds we can splat in a minute. And you're going to call out the sounds and then swap. They can do it for you and you've got to splat the sounds as well. Again, a really good idea for this is to make mistakes. Tell them, if you spot the mistakes that I'm making, then you can earn an extra point. They're being the teacher in this instance. So you're swapping roles and children love this. Okay, another really good one that you can do is literally get 4 sounds, or you could do it with more, but if you want to make it really simple, 4 sounds that your child's focusing on. Just as a side point, make sure there are at least 3 sounds in that 4 sounds that your child knows well, and then there might be one trickier one that they're struggling on, but you want the 3 sounds that they know really well because you're building that confidence. Most of them they should be able to read, and then the one tricky one that you're putting in there. Okay, so you're going to literally just take these sounds, you can write them on a sheet of paper, keep them on the flashcard, bit of blue tack, or you can put them on the side and you're going to stick them up on different sides of the wall in your house. You're going to get the children or your child stand in the middle and you're going to call out the sound. So when you say they're going to run to that sound and they're going to splat it with their hand and shout out the sound. Okay, when you say ch, they're going to run to that sound, splat the sound with their hand, shout out the sound. Ch. You get the idea. To make it trickier, you could add more sounds around the room. To take it up a level, instead of sticking sounds around the room, you could stick words around the room and call out the sounds in those words. So, as an example, if you were looking at the ch sound and the sh sound and the f sound, some of the words that you might put up around the room might be chip, shells, think. You're going to put those words up around the room and you're going to shout out a sound. So let's say you shout out the sound, your child is going to run to the word think. If you shout out the sh sound, your child is going to run to the word that says shell. So it's taking it up a next level if they're getting the basic sound ones are too easy for them. If you wanted to make it even harder, you could have it where the sound appears somewhere that isn't in the beginning of the word. So if you wanted the word arch, for example, you've got the ch sound at the end of arch. So it makes it trickier for the children to spot. Okay, but how do you get your child to transition from playing games to reading their school reading book? So first of all, what I want to say is if your child really will not read their school reading book in the evening, it is much better to play a phonics game with them, like the ones that I've just said, which they will do and they will engage in, they will love, than not to read a reading book or to read it and have a fight with them every evening. But how do we make that leap? So first of all, what I want to say is if your child is really reluctant to read their book, go down a book. Go to a book that they find easy. And this is how we're going to build their confidence and their stamina and take that pressure off their reading. Once they've built up that confidence, then we can go up to the next level that's more the level they should be working on. So you're going to take a look at the book that you want your child to read, and you're going to look in the front cover, and you're going to find the key sounds in the book and the key words. That week you're going to build up lots of those key words, lots of those sounds, and you're going to play all of the games that I've just suggested with those things. Once your child knows those sounds and knows those words, then you're going to open the book and give it a go. Once your child realizes that they can read that book, they experience success with that book, they are going to become less reluctant to read. So tons of praise, tons of positive reinforcement. Then you're going to read that book lots of times. So you're not just going to read that book once. So much research tells us that repeated reading of a book builds fluency. And not only does it build fluency for that book, it is also more likely to make your child better at reading other books as well. So how can you mix it up, this same book which they've read so many times, how can you make it slightly more interesting for them? So the first thing you can do is you can model the reading to your child. So you could say, okay, tonight I'm going to read a page, then you're going to copy me. Or I'm going to read a page, then you're going to read a page, and so on. Okay, tonight I'm going to read a page, but I'm going to read it as if I'm the queen, and I want you to read it as if you're the king. So you can sort of put on all sorts of different accents. Okay, tonight I want you to pretend you're a dog reading the book, and I'm going to pretend I'm a cat reading the book. So you're trying to make it as fun as you can, you're mixing it up. The key is you want your child to read it as many times as they can. If they have struggled on a sentence, so if they struggle on the sentence, the cat sat on the mat, and they're taking a long time to sound that out, you want them to go back to the beginning and reread it. So when they're going, the cat sat on the mat. Okay, go back to the beginning. If they find that too hard, you're going to break it down into fewer words. So the cat. Okay, go back and read it. The cat. Okay, sat on. The mat. The cat sat on, the mat. And then go back to the beginning. So you're building it each time as you go into tiny little steps for your child to read. If the whole book is too much, don't read the whole book, just read a few pages and keep reading those pages. Once they've got really good at those, have a go at the next ones. Just as a side note here, I want to point out that it's really important to develop your child's comprehension as well as their decoding, their reading of the words on the page. And what can happen when children are younger is they become struggling readers, and then actually what we do is we forget about the comprehension element of it because we're so focused on them being able to read the words on the page, and we spend all of our time worrying about that. And what that does is it actually de-skills our child with their comprehension. And when they need their comprehension skills later on, they haven't got the basics there that they need. That's the first thing. The second thing is it really makes them not enjoy reading, okay? Because imagine if you were learning to read another language and you were looking at the words on the page and that's all you were doing day in, day out. You weren't learning any stories, you weren't getting any fun, you weren't having any understanding of what you were reading. The reluctance is going to become stronger and stronger. So not only do you want to develop your child's decoding skills, you also want to develop their comprehension. And what a lot of parents say to me is, okay, but the books that they're reading are far too young for them. They're not interesting. They're not engaging for them. So how do I do that? So my first tip is audiobooks. Make sure you have got your child something they can listen to audiobooks on. They are great. Whether it's an Alexa or a radio, whatever it may be, or whether you've got a Tony or a Yoto player, they are fantastic. I really recommend them. Your child is listening to the syntax, the way the story is written, and they're able to listen to the story, follow it, enjoy it, and it's going to build their comprehension skills. The second thing that I recommend is that alongside them reading the book where they're decoding, you are going to be reading to another book that you're going to enjoy and discuss together. And the next thing I want to say is if your struggling reader is slightly older, there are tons of decodable books out there for older readers, which are not Biff and Chip or not The Cat Sat on the Mat, okay? So if you need recommendations, please get in contact with me and I will point you in the right direction. There's a link actually in the description of this video of how you can book a call with me. If not, my Instagram is hannah.thereadingteacher. There are so many out there, and I would hate for a child to hate reading simply because of the type of books that they've got. How do my fluency sessions work then? So the first thing I want to point out is all of the children that come to my fluency sessions and have tutoring with me, first of all, have a one-to-one assessment session with me. My fluency sessions are only ever 30 minutes long. They'll have a one-to-one assessment session, and in that session I will diagnose where they are struggling. So we're looking at what their specific gaps are. Are there sounds that they're struggling with? So are they stuck on a specific phase? So I might work with a child and say, well, actually they know all their phase 3 and phase 4 sounds. They don't know any of their phase 5 sounds, and that gives us somewhere to work on. It might be that a child knows their sounds, but they're really struggling with blending. It might be that a child knows all of their sounds, can blend them, but when it comes to multi-syllable words, it's really throwing them off. And actually they might have dyslexia or another need that needs meeting, which means that actually it's not easy for them to go from one-syllable words to multi-syllable words. So that's the first thing I do. I work with your child and I diagnose where the gaps are, what the issues are, and then I look at how we can move forward and work on those. They then have a second trial session with me. The second trial session is either another one-to-one session, if that's what they're being offered, or it is a group session, so they get to try out a fluency group for the first time. The way that these groups or these one-to-one sessions work pretty much follows a similar format every time. So we will start the session by introducing the key play, tons of online games, interactive games within the sessions, which mean they are practicing reading those sounds and words with those sounds in. You should be able to see on the screen now examples of some of those games. We might do a roll and read, we might play sound bingo, we might do word bingo. There are tons of games online that I use as well. And the great thing is I use it in an interactive whiteboard, which is shared with all of the children or one child if it's one-to-one, and the child can engage with the game and so can I at the same time. So it's not the case that they are sitting there static at the other end of the screen. Once we've played tons of games and we've really built their confidence, we'll then start looking at short phrases. It might be match the picture to the phrase. It might be read the phrase to your partner. It might be have a go at writing this phrase, depending on what stage the children are on. Then we will look at reading some sentences, and I use ebooks with the children online as well to build that fluency. All of the children love playing games in the groups. They love the competition. They love the aspect that they're all working on it together. And they're really, really fun. That's what we focus on. If there's ever a time in the session where I see the children getting disengaged or they're finding it too tricky, we go back. I model it to them. They have a go again. Because if it's tricky, they're going to be reluctant and we're going to have that whole cycle all over again for that child. Okay, I get a lot of parents saying to me, I think my child has dyslexia or dyspraxia or another special educational need that they suspect their child has. Then the next question they tend to ask me is, should I get them an assessment before they come and work with you? So my answer to that is always the same. If you want to get an assessment for your child, that's a personal opinion, and I think that can only ever benefit your child. However, that doesn't mean because they haven't got an assessment they can't come and work with me. The way that I assess your child will still work in exactly the same way, whether they have an assessment or they don't have an assessment. Once you've got the assessment, if you share the results with me, that's brilliant because it might tell me something I've not picked up on, or it might give me some extra information about your child. But as a rule, the things that I diagnose in my assessment with the children will help me know what their next steps are and how we get there. One of the things about dyslexia is that a multi-sensory approach really helps. Now, when you think of multi-sensory, people tend to think of things like using Play-Doh, writing in sand. Yes, those things are brilliant, and we might occasionally from time to time do those things. But actually what multi-sensory really means is being able to use actions, sound, words to go with things. So it can be as simple as writing or drawing a line or underlining or circling the sound. That is multi-sensory. It's not them just sitting and reading, it's them doing as they're doing it. I'd like to give you an example of this now. So I've recently done an Instagram reel for anybody interested. It will give you more information on this and I can point you in the right direction if you contact me. And my Instagram reel is all about how to get your dyslexic child or your struggling reader to read multi-syllable words. So your child knows the sounds, but when it gets to longer words like family or insult or admit or grandpa, any words that are 2 syllables or more, they're struggling because once they've sounded out the graphemes, they've forgotten where they started. And then it's very easy for us to say, break up the word, put it into chunks. But if they can't read the word, how can they break it up in the first place without somebody reading it to them? So the strategy that we use is I teach the children what their vowels are. Once they know their vowels, they can identify these in words. Then looking for the vowel sound followed by a consonant. This is where they draw the line. So when I work with children, I get them to dot the vowel, underline the consonant, draw a line to split the word. If it's a double consonant, they put it with the first chunk, so they draw the line afterwards. And actually, straight away, this is really multi-sensory for anyone with dyslexia because they are writing and doing as they are reading and as they are moving along the word. There are lots of other ways that you can do this. If you would like to find out more information, please follow my page and follow my Instagram, hannah.thereadingteacher. If you would like to book a call with me to discuss your child moving from phonics to fluency, please have a look at the link to book a call with me in the description of this video. Thank you.